Okay, so picture this. You're hanging out with your buddies 50,000 years ago. No phones, obviously. No Wi-Fi. But also, no words. Not one. Nobody has ever said hello. Nobody has ever said watch out. Nobody has ever said anything. Because language literally does not exist yet, as a thing humans do. And your friend is trying to tell you there's a hyena creeping up behind the bushes. How does he do that? He can't yell hyena. That word won't exist for another 40,000 years. So what does he do instead? He probably does something with his face that instantly makes your blood run cold, points at the bushes, and you're already moving. No dictionary required. That, right there, is basically the entire story of human communication before language, and it's way weirder and way cleverer than most people realize. Before we get into the how, let's deal with the why, because it actually matters. Ancient humans weren't just standing around thinking it'd be nice to chat. Communication back then was survival gear, as essential as a sharp rock or a fire. There were basically three things people absolutely had to be able to communicate, no matter what. 1. Danger, obviously, because a predator doesn't wait for you to finish a sentence. 2. Coordination, because hunting a woolly mammoth is not a solo sport, and if 5 guys attack from 5 random directions with zero communication, that mammoth walks away, and somebody probably doesn't. And 3, finding people, because if your kid wanders off near a riverbank and you have no way to call out, that's the whole ballgame right there. So, communication wasn't a nice bonus feature of being human, it was the thing standing between your group eating dinner tonight and your group becoming dinner. That's a strong incentive to get creative. Long before anyone said an actual word, humans were already noisy creatures. Grunts, cries, sharp shouts, whistles, maybe even clicking sounds made with the tongue. And here's the thing, these weren't just random noise, like someone stubbing their toe. Researchers think a lot of these sounds carried consistent meaning within a group, kind of like a very limited, very urgent playlist. A short, sharp bark might mean danger. Right now, move. A different, longer call might mean gather up or come look at this. Basically an ancient group chat, except every message is a scream, and there's no way to mute it. We actually see living proof that this system works incredibly well, because plenty of animals still run on it today. Vervet monkeys have documented distinct alarm calls for different predators, one for eagles, a totally different one for snakes, a third for leopards, and the other monkeys react differently depending on which call they hear, looking up for the eagle call and looking down for the snake call. Wolves coordinate entire pack movements through howls. Nobody taught early humans this trick. It's older than humans. We just eventually got better at it than anyone else on the planet, mostly because our brains kept getting bigger and greedier for detail. Now here's where it gets interesting, because a lot of researchers actually think gestures came before vocal sounds ever carried real meaning. Not after, before. Your hands are honestly an incredible communication tool if you think about it. You can point at something, you can show how big or small it is. You can mimic the shape of an animal's horns or the way it walks. You can hold up a hand to say stop, and every human on Earth still understands that gesture instantly, without ever being taught it in school. Early humans almost certainly leaned hard on facial expressions too. A furrowed brow, wide eyes, a clenched jaw. These are what scientists sometimes call universal expressions, meaning people from wildly different cultures, who've never met each other, still recognize the same basic face for fear, or anger, or joy. That's not a coincidence. That's ancient software running in all of us, installed long before words showed up. Small hunting bands living in close quarters could get an enormous amount done this way. The catch, and it's a big one, is that gestures only work if you can actually see the other person. Which is a real problem the moment it gets dark, or foggy, or your buddy wanders off exactly the way you told him not to. So how did anyone learn anything back then, if you can't exactly sit someone down and explain long division? The answer is almost embarrassingly simple. You watched. That's it. That's the whole method. If you wanted to learn how to nap a stone tool, sharpening flint into a blade with precise, practiced strikes, you didn't get a manual. You sat next to someone who already knew how, and you watched their hands do it, over and over, until your own hands could copy the motion. This is actually a wildly effective way to learn, and honestly, we never really stopped using it. Nobody explains to a toddler in words how to walk. They watch everyone else walk, and eventually they just do it too. You probably learn to ride a bike, or nail a dance move, or do a trick on a skateboard, mostly by watching someone else do it first, not by reading a paragraph about it. Observation was humanity's very first classroom, and it worked for an incredibly long time. But it has one obvious limit. You cannot demonstrate an idea that hasn't happened yet. You can show someone how to throw a spear. You genuinely cannot show them, with your hands, where the river bends 3 valleys over, or what might happen next winter. At some point, humans figured out something huge. You don't need to be standing there in person for your message to survive. You can leave it behind. This is where cave art enters the picture, and it's honestly one of the coolest plot twists in this whole story. Deep inside caves like Lascaux in France and Chauvet, also in France, people painted animals, herds of horses, bison, lions, along with handprints stamped right onto the rock, some of them tens of thousands of years old. And archaeologists still argue about exactly why. Some think it was practical, a way to pass down knowledge about which animals to hunt and how they moved. Some think it was ceremonial or spiritual. Others think certain markings might have functioned almost like an early calendar, tracking seasons or lunar cycles. Whatever the full answer is, one thing is clear. For the first time, a message could outlive the person who made it. You didn't have to be standing in that cave to receive the information. That is an absolutely massive leap. It's the moment communication stopped requiring 2 people in the same place at the same time, which, if you think about it, is the exact same job a text message does for you today, just with significantly worse battery life. Once humans started spreading out and living in bigger groups, a new problem showed up. What do you do when the people you need to reach are simply too far away to see your face or hear your voice? Different societies solved this in strikingly clever ways. In parts of West Africa, communities developed what are genuinely called talking drums, instruments specifically designed to mimic the rhythm and pitch patterns of spoken language, so skilled players could send fairly detailed messages across long distances, things like announcements, warnings, even calls to gather for a ceremony, all without a single word being shouted. In other regions, people relied on smoke signals during the day and beacon fires at night, a system that could carry a simple but urgent message, like enemies approaching, or send help, across mountains and valleys far faster than any runner could travel on foot. It's genuinely one of the first long-distance communication networks in human history, and it worked on the same core principle every communication system still uses today. Turn information into a signal, send the signal, and make sure someone on the other end knows how to read it. Now, before this starts sounding like ancient humans basically had it all figured out, let's be honest about how messy this whole system actually was. Communication before true language was slow. It depended entirely on memory, because nothing was written down anywhere. It was wildly affected by weather, because good luck reading smoke signals during a rainstorm. If the one messenger carrying a critical piece of information happened to get sick, or hurt, or simply die, that information often died with him. And once different groups with different gesture systems and different call patterns bumped into each other, there was a real chance of total miscommunication, the ancient equivalent of 2 people trying to have a conversation with completely incompatible phone chargers. This wasn't a smooth, elegant system. It was humans duct-taping together grunts, faces, hand signals, drawings and rhythm, and somehow making it functional enough to survive ice ages, migrations, and mammoths. And then, gradually, something shifted. Nobody can point to one single day this happened, and nobody ever will be able to, because it didn't happen in a single day. Sounds that once meant roughly danger or roughly food started narrowing into something far more specific and far more shareable. A particular sound consistently meant water. A different one consistently meant that animal, the striped one, not the other one. Once sounds became reliably tied to specific meanings, and once other people could learn and repeat those same sounds, something happened that had never happened before in the history of life on Earth. Ideas could leave one person's head and land, largely intact, inside somebody else's head, without either person needing to see, point at, or physically demonstrate anything. You could talk about yesterday. You could talk about next season. You could warn someone about a danger they had never personally seen, just by describing it. That is language, and once it showed up, it didn't just help humans communicate a little better, it completely rewired what our species was capable of. Here's the part that still keeps researchers up at night. Nobody knows what the first true word ever spoken by a human actually was. Nobody knows who said it, where they were standing, or what they were pointing at when they said it. It might have been a word for water. It might have been a warning about a predator. It might have been someone's name, spoken by a parent, calling a child back before the light disappeared. Whatever it was, that single, forgotten sound eventually led to everything else. Every story ever told around a fire, every argument, every love letter, every joke, every history book, every single word in this script you're listening to right now. Before language, humans survived using gestures, sounds, paintings, drums, and smoke. It worked, barely, and it worked just long enough to buy us time until something better came along. After language showed up, humans didn't just survive anymore. We started building entire worlds. And somewhere back in that silence, one person made a sound that meant something specific for the very first time in the history of our species, and then never got any credit for it at all.